another Portage Daily Register webcast, the first of 2011. Hopefully, you all had a nice new year and have a nice 2011. For Travis, I'm Dan, and we're going to start off talking a little prep hoops. Obviously, a month and a half into the season now. Travis, on the girls' side, who would you say has kind of stood out and impressed through the first month and a half of the season?
Yeah, if I had to pick one local team that's kind of been impressive to this point, it's probably been the Ryle girls. They're sitting at 5-1. They opened the season with 5 straight wins. Didn't suffer their first loss until over the holiday season in the championship game of the Ryle tournament when they lost to Mayville. But like I said, started out the season 5-0, and most of their wins have been blowouts. Of those 5 wins, their closest victory was a 55-46 win over Poinette. So besides that, they've all been by double digits. And they're led by kind of a trio of pretty good players between Erica Ryerson, Chelsea Ryerson, and Megan Petty. Erica's especially been impressive in the scoring. She's hit double-digit scoring in every game this year, and she's averaging 12.6, where Megan Petty's also averaging double digits at 10 a game, while Chelsea's at 7 a game. So those three are kind of leading the way, at least with the scoring. And of their 5 wins, 2 are in conference. They're 2-0 in the Southern Trailways, and they're tied with Fall River and Deerfield. And actually, later this month, they play both of them. On January 18th, they host Deerfield, and then a couple days later, on the 21st, they're at Fall River. So that'll probably be a key stretch in that conference. So we'll see how the Ryle girls can do the rest of the way.
It should be interesting. I know from before the season, some of the stuff I did with the coaches definitely. Ryle was kind of picked as one of the teams to contend in that conference. So, like you said, they should be challenged coming up here in a couple of weeks. On the boys' side, really has been a pretty impressive start for the Lodi boys, who were 6-17 last season, won just once in the Capital North, and they won their first 7 this season. They had about a 13-day layoff, haven't played since before Christmas until Tuesday night when they got beat by Sauk Prairie. So they're 7-1 now, but really an impressive start for the Blue Devils, who were even ranked 7th among Division 4 teams, Division 3 teams. So and they're led by a young group, Chris Sefrud, who's a sophomore, and Jordan Shea, who's a freshman. Those two have really been pretty dynamic for the Blue Devils. So it should be interesting to see if the lack of experience, I guess, can not become a problem for the Blue Devils as the season wears on. Yeah,
it's kind of crazy that we're talking boys basketball in Lodi. It's obviously a wrestling school, but now they've got some hoops they're playing there too. So good for them.
And tonight they will be playing against Lake Mills down in Lake Mills, and really, Lodi did have a nice win, 79-66 a couple weeks ago against conference favorite Lakeside Lutheran. But now again tonight, Lake Mills, who's 1-1 in the conference, 9-1 overall, and if the Blue Devils can win down there, really make a statement that the start of the season hasn't been a fluke. And in that Capital North, for a 3-0 start for the Blue Devils with the likes of Poinette and Lakeside Lutheran would be a nice start. And Poinette, another team that's really off to a nice start. They've won 6 straight, an impressive win over Green Lake, who has a Division I recruit in junior Matt Van Sykic, I think is how it's pronounced.
Yeah, Van Soik or
something
like that, yeah.
Yeah, and so, a nice win for Poinette. They've won 6 straight, 3 of those games by 5 points or less, so they're finding a way to win close games, and of course they made it to a sectional final last season, so they've got some of those guys back and trying to build some momentum again this season. Should be interesting to see both ways, Ryle girls and Lodi and Poinette boys, how they hold up in their conference races. But obviously coming up this weekend is in the NFL. Some think it's the craziest weekend of the NFL schedule, the wild card weekend. Some really interesting matchups, especially when you consider the road teams really are more or less the favorites in all 4 games. But we'll start with the Green Bay-Philadelphia matchup. Travis, who do you like in that one?
This game scares me as a Packers fan. I hope to heck that the Packers can win, but my head tells me to go with the Eagles for 2 reasons, I think. One is I remember the 4th and 26 play in Philadelphia when the Packers lost in that playoff game. And then the other one is when Michael Vick with the Falcons came into Lambeau and just smoked them in the playoffs. So those two games, those two memories, just have me going towards the Eagles.
I'm going with Green Bay for no real reason other than I think the natural progression of a young team like the Packers is to learn from the mistakes they made in that loss to Arizona last season and get this win. I don't think they'll do much moving on in the playoffs, but I do think they'll get this win. The other game in the NFC, New Orleans has to go to Seattle, 7-9 West Division champions, and I don't think there's anybody that's picking the Seahawks to win. But Travis, are you?
No. I actually watched them clinch the division on Sunday night over the Rams, and that was an awful game. They're an awful team. They don't belong in the playoffs, but hey, they won their division, so they're there. But I will say this: I think the point spread something like 10 points. It'll be closer than that. So if I was picking on spread, I'd take the Seahawks, but Saints are going to win.
I agree. Also going with New Orleans. Think it'll be a closer game than maybe some people expect. That Seattle crowd is pretty energetic, and Pete Carroll, for some reason or another, seems to find a way to prove doubters wrong. On the AFC side, another dangerous 6 seed, I guess, if you consider the Packers a dangerous 6 seed in the NFC. The Jets play in Indianapolis. Travis, who do you like in this one?
I got to go with the Colts for the simple reason the one thing that the Jets defense has struggled with is pass rush. And if you can't get any pressure on Peyton Manning, it's lights out. You're not going to win. So Colts at home are going to win.
I'm taking the Jets. I like Peyton Manning. I just don't like, I guess, what's happened to his surrounding cast this season. A lot of injuries, and it just doesn't seem like they're clicking on all cylinders. And the Jets, it seems like all season they've had some ups and downs, but really they just wanted to get to the playoffs, and they're there now, and I think they're going to come out and look a lot different, a lot better than they did at some points during the regular season. And then the last game in the AFC this weekend, Baltimore goes to Kansas City. Travis, what do you see in this one?
I got to go with the Ravens. There's been no team in recent history that's been better on the road in the playoffs than Baltimore. If you remember last year, they went into New England and just smoked them. But I'm not sold on the Chiefs quite yet. I mean, I know that's a tough place to play, but I think the Ravens are the better team, and they know how to get it done on the road.
Baltimore was my Super Bowl pick before this season, and it's really hard for me to pick against them in this game, but I'm going with Kansas City. They haven't won in 3 playoff games at home since 1993, and that Arrowhead Stadium crowd is going to be lively. For one, I think Kansas City can do an awful lot of the same things Baltimore can: run the football, play pretty good defense. And Todd Haley, I think, with that Super Bowl experience in Arizona a couple of years ago as the offensive coordinator there, I don't think this team is going to be fazed by not being in the playoffs in a while. So I'm going with Kansas City, but Baltimore was my pick before the year, so I won't be surprised if they won it either. And finally, Travis, Super Bowl prediction. Who do you think comes out of both conferences?
Yeah, I know this is kind of boring prediction, but I'm going with the top seeds. New England is just rolling. I don't see anyone beating them. And in the NFC, I like the Falcons, just for the simple fact that they're home in the Dome there. It's a tough place to play, and I know it's boring, but that's who I'm picking.
I can't disagree that that's a good pick, but I just have a very good feeling that New Orleans is going to come out of the NFC. On the AFC side, I really, Pittsburgh. I'm going with Pittsburgh, but I really don't know who to pick there. So, but I'm going with New Orleans and Pittsburgh in the Super Bowl, and I think New Orleans wins the second straight Super Bowl title. So we'll watch along with everybody else and see how it plays out. Fun time of year for the NFL. And for Travis, I'm Dan. Until next week, take care, everybody.